quick roll call. Who in here currently gardens or has gardening experience? Okay, almost everybody. Are there any in here that would be considered master gardeners? Because I'm not. Okay, so I actually had a couple of patients that were hopefully going to be lined up to give the master gardening perspective, to answer some of the tough questions and stuff like that. But unfortunately, they're far and few to come by, and the two that I knew, they just couldn't make it here tonight, though they both wished that they could. So knowing that out front that they weren't going to be able to make it, I really was looking at this from a perspective of, what were some of the problems that we've had in the first 3 years, 3-4 years, whatever, that we've really been kind of more aggressively gardening, and what are some of the tips and other things that you might be able to do. Some of the other ideas that some people may not be aware of if you've got different space limitations and stuff like that. I might be able to answer some more detailed questions, but hopefully, since all of us in here have good experience at least gardening, that somewhere in here your answer will be here. So there's going to be we're going to spend some time, because this is actually going to go rather quickly. This is probably going to be one of the quicker workshops, and so it'll give us a little bit more time to converse. Okay, so. Basically, ideas and tips to make our rookie experience easier than ours. If you are just starting off as a rookie, I'm hopefully at least going to keep you from making the big mistakes by giving some of the quick, easy tips. So first thing that we're going to go through is I'm going to go through some of the ideas of the different styles of gardening, because some people may not know some of the technologies that are available now and things that are coming down the pike. So it's cool to know what is available now and what will be available, say 10 years, 20 years from now, what you're going to see is actually common. So the first one, besides just sticking stuff in the ground, who in here just sticks everything in the ground? Okay, that's the good old-fashioned way. Our problem that we found, which I'm sure you found as well, is starting stuff from seed, right? If you think, man, I'm going to start everything from seed this year, and you go out and you spend all that time. I should have started off the workshop like that, actually. Like, for anybody who hasn't gardened, this is what we're going to show you how to do tonight. How to spend hour after hour out in the beating sun with gnats and bugs flying around and up your nose while you sweat drip pouring down your face until your back hurts, and then you get one vegetable at the end of the season. It's like, that's the reality for that our first couple of years of gardening was just learning the frustrations and kind of learning what not to do. So one of the first things that I learned was just going out there and dropping 1 million seeds in the ground is not all that effective, because we found that very few things actually come up. The things that did come up for us, and this kind of goes into some of the technique stuff as well. For us, we found it was marigolds. Luckily, we can actually eat marigolds. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that. Don't eat the ones that you buy from the store, but if you grow them from seed and they're organic, you can actually eat the flowers, and they taste really good. I mean, if you take the petals and you pull them apart and you put them over a salad, they're actually quite phenomenal, and they're good for you. And if you take the marigold plants and you put them in the ground and rebury them and or chop them up and put them in there, they actually attract beneficial nematodes into the soil. So we learned that after we had taken all those giant marigold plants. I mean, we literally had them this big. The smaller varieties were this big in balls with about 100 flowers on them at any given time, and then the big ones, the flowers got to be about that big, and they were this tall. They were literally so tall that they were falling over, they were collapsing under their own weight. So that's about the only thing that we were really ultimately successful at, growing stuff like that plant up there. But I wish it was vegetables and things like that we could get to grow like that. But we had taken all those plants and taken them out and thrown them away, so that they didn't create new seeds covering my garden the next year. And then I was told, you can rebury those, and they're actually really good for the soil. So if you don't want to just stick stuff in the ground, or what's the big problem down here with doing that? Just sticking stuff in the ground.
So wet.
It's so wet. What else? During the summer, it actually gets baked. Why? Because of the soil. Who in here has clay soil? Like almost everybody, right? I mean, it's hard packed clay soil. So our backyard was, and you can see when they're building new houses, they go back and they bulldoze the lawns, and it's nothing but orange clay. And so our lawn, I remember seeing that, when the house was, all the houses around us as they're building them, they come in and they tell them, and I mean, it's just nothing but just orange across the whole yard. So they had to come in and put in topsoil. So the first problem is really the soil. You got to have the right stuff, because not everything grows in clay. In fact, very few things other than marigolds and okra grow in clay. So the raised bed really kind of solves this problem. Who in here has done raised beds before? Okay, a good number of us. Okay, so about half of us. This is where we started off, was just the small boxes about like this. And what's nice about it is that you can put in your own soil. You put in, the Miracle-Gro or whatever kind of topsoil you can get. It doesn't matter what's underneath it. It drains well, so you don't have that issue. It's easy to maintain and keep your borders. The problem is the boxes deteriorate. If you don't water regularly, because it is high up, they can actually dry out quicker, and then you end up with like the crusty, almost looks like mushrooms on top. Has anybody experienced that? Like it's wet and then it dries out and it's got, like breaks off in clumps. So you can have that issue too, but those are much better than not being able to grow anything at all. So this is probably the most rookie-friendly option. That's why I started this as the top one. Easy to build and maintain, allows simple separation of plantings. You can, especially things like peppermint and strawberries that are invasive, you can keep those bound off by putting them in different boxes. But when you get into bigger and bigger areas, it's really hard to continue to expand raised gardens. Raised gardens only kind of work with small organic gardens. It's good for drainage in low ground, but can dry on high sunny ground. Okay, the next one. Who in here has done this before? This is pretty country right here. You just take the bag of potting mix, cut a hole in the top, and grow it right in the bag. Okay. Goods and bads. Okay, the bags of organic garden or potting soil, they're super easy, but you have to control moisture very closely. If you get them too wet, what happens? Everything in there drowns and it rots. Okay. If you let it get too dry, which it will do really quickly if you're in open sun, the whole bag will bake and everything's going to die in it in a day, in this kind of heat. So, my thoughts on this, although I know people that have done this, it would be more for a high shade area, and you'd be very limited in what you can grow in there, what's really going to be effectively grown. But down here in the heat, it would just be so hard to control. You'd have to be out there with a water meter pretty much every day and get, to the point where you're measuring stuff consistently. Who in here has used a water meter? Like the little, no? Nobody? Oh, wow, okay. One, you can buy on Amazon, and it's really, I would recommend anybody go and get one of those. I found this out. It really does work. You can get on Amazon or AliExpress or eBay or any of these websites, and you can find they're about this tall, and they have ones with 3 prongs on them. And you just take it, you stick it down into the soil, and it's got a flipper on it where it will check the moisture level of the soil, the pH of the soil, and what's the third one? It checks something else. No. Dang. I can't remember what the third one is. They sell them, they have the individual ones where they'll check, you can buy a 1 meter to just check water, 1 meter to just, but this one's got all 3 of them on there. So look for that. Look for, just when you pull it up, look at pH garden meter. They're like $7. I mean, they're really, really cheap. And I mean, you can tell they're built entirely cheap too. But I mean, all you have to use it for is once a week or whatever, go out, stick it in the ground in different areas of your garden. And if you're not sure why something isn't growing particularly well in one area, you'll find out really quick. Because we have this one area in ours where it's behind a rock wall and everything is raised up, and not that tall, but it's about this tall off of the grass, and it was all brand new soil in that area. We didn't have any clay in it at all. And so it's got good drainage. The shelf, of the rock wall kind of keeps the moisture in there, and everything just grew huge. I mean, we had mustard, the red giant mustard greens that were this big. I mean, the leaves were bigger than my head. I mean, they were this big. But that's one of the only places that stuff really grew well. I mean, collard plants this big. I mean, huge. But then if you go 10 feet in, towards the back of the garden, all the collard plants that we planted, which there were probably about 30 of them, after a year, this big. I mean, they were in the ground all winter long, and as of right now, they're still this big and they're going to seed. So what's the difference? We found out once we had the pH meter in the garden and the hygrometer, I think is what it's called, because we put that in and we found that area retains moisture really, really well. The area up there, it's all clay. It doesn't retain any moisture at all. Everything bakes. So get one of those. That would make this about the only way that you could really viably do it. And the good thing is it doesn't take up a lot of space. You can move the bags around, so if you're limited and you're going to have to move them, like when grandkids come to play in the backyard or due to pets or whatever, you can transport stuff. So obviously lettuce grows okay this route. Straw bales. This is another one. I have another patient that did this last year. She said, it did okay, but not great. What you do, you just take the big old straw bales and you can actually pour some water fertilizer over the top. So mix fertilizer in with the water or mix manure in with some water and pour that over the top of the bay of the hay barrels. And so as hay barrel, are hay and straw the same thing? No? Okay. Well, straw. We'll say it correctly. So the straw bales, you put the manure over the top and it sinks down into it, and then it starts to decompose over the course of the season. Okay? So as it decomposes throughout the season, it releases nutrients, which the plants then grab. But again, I think you'll find, we've never done this route, but at least the feedback that I've gotten from people that have is you can only grow certain things. Like certain things, these grow decently well. This looks like probably cucumbers here, but I'm sure other things you'd find would be a complete failure. It just depends on the system. But easy picking due to the height. They're going to stand up this high or so. So if you have back issues or you don't want to be bent over in the dirt all day, that might be a better option. You have to control the moisture in high sun because these will bake like what are those? They used to make houses out of that, mud and straw, right?
Adobe.
Adobe, yeah. So you don't want your garden turning into an adobe house. But not everything will grow, like I said. So this is an okay option, but it's there. It might be something you want to play with. The next one, this one is really cool and this is really promising. Who has heard of NFT systems? Most people, okay. So the nutrient film technique, this is your basic level hydroponic system. Okay, there's the advanced ones, which I'm not even going to go through, where you might have seen these. They've got huge tanks, or trays that are filled with clay pebbles, and then you get like basically a giant 100-gallon tank that you put fish in, and you raise either goldfish or tilapia or something like that, and you have to, so you're literally taking care of a fish tank, and if you can keep the fish alive, then the fish, as they eat and they poop, that goes into the water, and then that recycles into the plants, which the plants now live off of that, off the fish feces. So all you have to do is keep power running the system. It has to be battery operated or pump operated, but then you have to keep the fish alive, which in this temperature, that might be harder to do because you'd have to keep it in a closed environment. And I know some of the fish, people have trouble in different areas because the water temperature gets too hot and the fish get sick as a result of that. So I didn't even bother going through that one, but this one is pretty basic. You can configure this in a bunch of different ways. You can have them, just tiered. You have people that just put them out on tables. You can make an A-frame and put different ones across like this on both sides, but it allows you to take a very, very small footprint and create a lot of different growing stations. And it also makes it really easy to transplant out. So you don't have to have anything fancy. You don't have to order fancy cups or anything like that. You can actually use like plastic cups. Just please don't, go over to Red Bar and ask for a stack of cups. All of a sudden we're missing a box. What happened? Oh, you guys had the workshop. The cups, you can just use regular old cups, and it doesn't matter. You just cut the bottoms out of them, or put poke holes in the bottom. They just have to have a way for the roots to get through to the water. Okay, and what happens if you're not familiar with this? You have a bucket, a water container at the bottom that you keep your fertilized water in. So you just mix small amounts of dissolved minerals into the water. Then the pump leads the lines up into and drops them into the gravity-fed systems. The lines, the pipes, you have on a very slight tilt, just a couple of degrees downhill. And so what happens is the water goes in one end, and it slowly travels across, and it goes out the other end and feeds down. And like this one is a continuous system. So it comes down in here, then it drops down the other side into that one, and then it drops down into that one. And so it feeds its way down through the system and then comes out the bottom. So let me tell you how not to mess this up, okay? The first time that we did it, which is still not resolved in my back, I built this awesome system that's got pipes going back and forth, probably about, 6 or 8 different pipes going back and forth. But the problem is, the tube, and you guys are going to laugh. I mean, this is pretty stupid, but I did it, so I'm going to take responsibility. Okay, I have the pipe that comes up from the pump that goes into the top of the system, and then it gravity feeds all the way down. The problem, though, is I use the same size tube to connect the pipes as I did from the motor pump. Okay, what's the problem? Restriction. See, this one is powered. These ones are not. Okay, so what happened? You get this whole thing all built. It's lovely. It's beautiful. I mean, it's painted and everything. It looks great. And I turn on the pump, and it starts working. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, it's working. And all of a sudden, out of the top corner, all the water starts bubbling out of the top and falling onto the ground. Epic failure. So the key to this system working is you have to have a thick enough connection pipe from your other systems. Otherwise, you end up having to do some kind of finagling to make it work. Which obviously don't do that. Just make sure that you have enough pipe. You see ones where they actually connect them using the same size pipe. You don't necessarily need to go that far. That's why I use this picture, because this is a good example of using a sufficient size but not being overkill and using 4-inch connecting tubes. Because if you haven't seen the 4-inch connecting elbows, they're about this big. So you put 2 of those together to make a U-turn, you've got to have this much space. Okay? So all those things need to be a consideration when it all comes down to it. But this allows you to grow a lot of stuff in a very small space, and it's a consistent system. That's what I like about it, is your plants are constantly getting water. So you start them off until the roots come down, and so you want to start them in seed starting trays, okay, and then how you can pick up the cups and you see that the roots are down into the bottom of the tray. Once they hit that level, you're ready to drop them into this system. That way they're in contact, and as the plants get bigger and bigger, the roots get bigger and bigger, and if you're careful, they'll actually get so big that they'll actually start to restrict the water and clog it up.
I was going to say, I built one of those probably 10 years ago, and gobs of roots. Mm-hmm. I mean, it did stop it up.
Yeah.
The other problem, I came home one day and my pump went out and everything died.
Everything died? Oh, jeez. That quickly? Holy moly.
Well, I mean, it was over a period of time.
Okay, so you had been going
one
for a while.
One day I came home and, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you got to keep an eye on it too. Another problem is too, if you're within earshot, you're going to hear a pump running all day and all night. So you consider your location as well, because when we turned on the system and went inside, it was like, we could hear the pump running nonstop, and then we heard splashing. So, but this is a good system if your environment requires you to do something like this. Some people, they literally, they're in an urban environment. We don't necessarily have a whole lot of that around here, but imagine you lived in the middle of New York City and all you had was a rooftop. They can grow gardens in New York City now, because of stuff like this, except, not in the winter, but depending on the season. And, if you grow it inside, you could do this inside of a greenhouse and you wouldn't be limited by the season. You could control the environment even more. So it's really this has kind of been the framework that has built some of the newer technologies that you're seeing really start to transform the way that we grow food. So anyhow, it requires power to operate. If your power goes down, your plants die. It requires maintenance of the water. If you don't keep up with the water, or if you get the mixture wrong, you can also, essentially poison your plants or starve them. You have to make sure that you have the right mineral composition in the water. The good news is you get lots of plants in a very small space. That can be bad news, like you said, where you end up having congestion of the lines and then your bottom plants starve. One way to get around that is what I've seen a lot of people do now is they have individual feed lines going into each tube. So instead of having go through a full gravity system to where the bottom line might not get as many nutrients, you can actually create it where you have the individual pump separate into multiple lines and then send one line to each one of the tubes. That's probably how I'm going to fix my system, is I'm just going to run one line into multiple small lines into each of the tubes. When I get around to it, all that extra time I got, I'll find something. But you do get fast controlled growth. You can grow things in this system much, much faster when it's working. Were you able to grow a lot of stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful plant.
And in very, very small amounts of time too. You can turn over, in a system like this, you could probably grow enough lettuce to where you wouldn't have to buy anything from the store. If you rotate it and cycle it correctly, like you plant this line, your first 2 weeks. Then you plant your next line 2 weeks later, and then your next line 2 weeks later. As the top ones get big, you start pulling those ones out and putting in new seedlings. So then you work your way down, and you can just keep on rotating through the system. Okay, they're supplying entire grocery stores now with systems just like this, where they have warehouses. They're buying warehouse buildings, and they have huge systems that have rotating trays on mechanical systems where they just rotate them around. And they're running, I don't have that in here, but they found that you can fill the building with nothing but blue and red LED lights. So you walk in and it's hard to see. It's like this purplish hue in there, but plants grow well underneath just those basic red and blue LEDs. Okay. Yeah, instead of sunlight. Yeah. Any questions on this?
One other problem I had was algae.
Yes. Absolutely.
What have you done about that?
Well, my system failed so quick I didn't have to worry about algae. But I did read about it before I built it. And you will get, if you don't have, kind of the key that I found was the angle of the tubes and how much of an angle you have. If you have it at too much of an angle, the plants have a hard time feeding because they have rushing contact past the root systems. But if you angle it too lightly or you don't angle it at all, the water stays stagnant and the algae grows like crazy. So if you angle it at just a couple of degrees, that seems to be the happy medium where it restricts it enough. But you still want to do you still at the end of the planting season, when you reset everything during the winter, you're going to have it to where you can clean everything out. So be ready to devise your system accordingly to where you can take it apart and power wash out the lines. We're actually going to have to power wash our line out because a bird is building a nest in one of ours right now. Literally inside the tube. It's not on top of it, inside the tube. So I'm done until it's had its babies and left. Okay, this one is really cool. The Cracky method. Who's heard of this one? One guy. All right. So we get to learn something new tonight. The Cracky method is awesome. In this system, they found that it's basically a floating table system where you take, the problem is space, okay? You have to have a large space, because let's say we took an area that was 10 foot by 10 foot, and you had that much room to create a table. This here is a water table, so it's up off the ground. It's you put not 2x6s, like 2x8s together, and you build a frame that is just in a giant box with plywood decking underneath it, and then you take this real heavy, the heaviest mill plastic or vinyl, and you put that inside of there, and then you frame it down on top so it's sealed. So you basically have a small swimming pool, okay? But it's airtight and it's light tight. Like, you wouldn't want to literally take a baby kid pool because you can see through them and algae will grow. This system, it's all about controlling the algae. That's why they designed this system. It's kind of a branch off of the NFT. So then you take an insulation, a floating insulation plank, okay? And you cut that exactly to the size of the top of the table to where you can, to where it either fits securely in there and doesn't let any light in, or you set it completely on top of it and run some tape around the side of it or something to completely seal it off. Then on the inside, you just, when you start your growth period, you fill up the water system and you set your fertilizer in there and you leave it alone. All it has in there is a water pump, or not a water pump, an aerator. Yes. So the aerator creates the oxygen in the water. The nutrients is already in the water. You're controlling the algae because it doesn't have any sunlight. The algae need the sunlight to grow. Okay, but what it does is when you drop the cups in initially, they just have tiny roots. You just have to have the roots far enough in to where they have to contact the top of the water level. And what do the roots do? They grow down into it. Well, what do the plants use as they grow? More and more water, right? So this is really interesting. What happens is as the roots grow deeper and deeper, as you can see here, these are fully matured plants. As they grow deeper and deeper into the water is being used, so it drops the water table. Well, the roots will actually continue to grow down into the water, and they found that instead of the roots having to get both oxygen and water, they actually they manipulate themselves, and the bottom of the roots that are still in the water collect the water. The roots on the top that aren't in the water anymore, they collect the air. So it collects the air and the water separately from the same root.
That prevents rot.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they continue to grow, and as that water table just drops further and further and further down into it, the plants don't drown. They get plenty of oxygen, but they're still getting plenty of water too. And so the problem with it is, of course, you have to grow everything at the same stage. So you have to have a full table of the same thing. It's also ideal if you grow the same plants, because of course different plants have different growth patterns. So if something is really fast growing and something else is real slow growing, the fast growing ones will drop the water level out of reach of the slower growing ones and they'll all die. Okay, so it's best to grow a full table of just chard like you see on here. It's really neat too. I love showing this picture because you can see how the different chard, how they actually, the root systems match the color of the plants too. It's just kind of neat, because where else could you pull up a water table, pull up a plant like that and see how pretty the roots really are as well. I mean, you can't do that in any other technique. So the problems with this, you must have sufficient space and power. We couldn't do this because my boys, after I built the water system, they actually complained to me and they said, "Dad, will you please not put any more garden space in the backyard because we're running out of place to play." Like, they already can't really, they're running out of room to run around. Not really, but that's kids. In their head, they ran out of room. So you also have to have power, just like the NFT system. It's best indoors because what they found is the way that it floats on top, when it rains, the rain will actually get in and flood out your table and get debris and other stuff into your water. So it makes it really difficult. So they do suggest that you grow these kind of systems inside of the greenhouse. The fast growth, it does allow probably the fastest growth with little to no maintenance at all. I mean, you literally put the table in, all you have to do is make sure that the aerator is running. As long as that aerator is still buzzing, you don't have to touch it, and you can grow full-size plants in 30 to 45 days. I mean, it's amazing how fast. You watch some of these videos, if you put Kratky into YouTube and watch some of the videos on there, you will be blown away how fast stuff grows. Have you tried this by chance?
I have not tried it.
You haven't tried it?
I built a greenhouse, but I didn't use good mill poly. It's good on the sides, just not on the front and the back, so I have to fix that.
Okay. So, rookie mistake like me. Right?
Yes.
We all make them. When we don't watch enough YouTube videos first. That's the idea. You watch a million YouTube videos first to learn all the mistakes people make before you do it. But you know, you can do that all day long, honestly, and you're still gonna run into stuff that other people have not talked about. Zip grow towers. Who's seen these before? This is another different technique that's available now. I've seen this actually done using gutters. You know, you can go to Home Depot and buy cheap plastic gutters and just cut holes in them. But what they do, the unique thing about the zip grow towers is they're open on both ends. So it's basically just a vinyl shell that can open up from the top. Okay, and then they sell these fold over mats of soil, basically grow material, grow medium, that you put on the inside. So you take the roll and you put it into one side of the tube. Okay, insert the end in, and then you take your seedling and you put it into the tube, seal it around it, and then shove that side into the tube. Then you move it in a little bit further, put your next seedling in, fold it over, stick it into the tube, push it in, fold it over, stick it into the tube, right? So that you've got your spacing proper. And so you're literally, when you're done, you've got this tube, that's the garden on the ground. Well, then you take the whole thing and you lift it up and you hang it onto a rack, okay? And then what happens from there, you have a water drip system, a drip irrigation system in the top of it. And then all you do is just turn on the water and it just drips from the top. Well, that water, as it saturates the soil, it automatically moves down through the medium. And the medium is actually designed to allow the water to continue to fall through. So this takes an incredibly small amount of space and allows you to grow, again, full-size plants. Lettuces, things like that do really well. Obviously you're not going to be able to grow watermelons like this. It depends on what you're trying to grow, but this is an effective system. The problem with this is, number one, it's best for shaded areas or greenhouse again, because imagine how hot these tubes would get in the middle of full sunlight in Mobile. I mean, everything in there would bake. So you have to have a shaded area or a greenhouse. It requires power irrigation. You have to run a pump to it. Very small space is needed and easy to swap and maintain. When you have everything grown to where you want to harvest it, you pull down the individual tower, you set it down, and you pull everything out and pick all your plants out, and then start the whole process over again. The other problem is the startup cost. Okay, these towers are not necessarily cheap. They're probably, I don't remember, but they're probably in the range of $30 to $40 per tube. So you're going to dump a lot of money in right off the bat to get this system going. After that, if you're committed to it and you know how to use it and you're successful for it and you set it up right the first time, it would probably be worth it. In a couple of years, you're going to get your investment back because they're not going to wear out. But there is the investment cost up front. You always have to watch that. We just did our taxes and I saw collectively how much I spent on gardening last year. I don't know if you guys keep that detailed records, but let's just say I did not get my money back last year. So hopefully that will be different.
I had $30 tomatoes.
You had what?
Each. $30.
You had.
After we planted all the stuff, and I tell my wife that my house is where everything goes to die.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about $30 a tomato.
That's what you got out of it? I could have made endless bouquets of marigolds. I mean, I could have supplied everybody in here. In fact, one day, we remember that? They walked over into Red Bar, and there were little pots of marigolds on every single table over there and all over the bar. They were everywhere. I was like, what happened? No, we decided to pick a million marigolds yesterday. You can eat them if you like. Eat them with your coffee. So we did real well with that. We've done good with green beans in the past. And luckily our strawberries, we planted not too many plants last year, but we now have an area about the size of this rug of all strawberries, and they're doing fantastic. We probably have easily 100 berries growing in our strawberry bed right now.
How do you keep the birds away from eating them?
You put a either a wire or a PVC runner over the top, and then put net over the top of it. They sell that net. We learned that last year. Guess how many strawberries we got? About 2. Because they were growing great. We're like, yeah, we're gonna get strawberries. And then we walked out there. Where'd the strawberries go? We're looking everywhere. They were gone. I mean, every single one of them vanished. We swore initially that a neighbor jumped the fence and stole all of our berries, but then we realized,
Yeah, mockingbirds in our neighborhood are fighting over my strawberries.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you have to cover them. That's absolute.
And what about tomatoes? Same thing, or do you do something different to protect
Dean?
them for the tomatoes?
You don't want to ask about my luck. Last year, I think we got 2 tomatoes about this big on probably 8 or 10
The
plants.
advice I heard about for tomatoes is when they're about 30% ripe, pick them.
Pick them.
And let them ripen in the your table or something in the house. The birds won't get them then. But
So the
beyond 30%.
birds eat the
But they
tomatoes.
also said
Yeah, they do.
yellow tomatoes, the birds don't like them.
Huh.
I tried something really old fashioned last year. I did my tomatoes in pots, big pots, off the ground. And I wanted the birds to stay away, so I had my cages. And I just hung string I bought some foil pans and just cut them apart.
Yep.
Punched a hole, tied them, and the wind would kind of, and it worked.
It
I had
did
no
work.
problems with the birds.
Yeah, we use that for squirrels on our blackberries
Yeah.
because we saw squirrels out there literally hanging upside down by their back legs. It was like Mission Impossible. They're hanging down and they're reaching and grabbing blackberries.
But the key to that was, for me, I had to cut them kind of small so the wind would really pick them up and move them.
Yeah. Okay, this one is really cool. Have you seen this before? This is brand new, okay? This, I think you're going to see a lot more of this in the future. This is called the Volksgarten. I don't think it has anything to do with the beetle, Volkswagen Bug. But it's an artificial system where it's really effective in low light environments. You don't have to have any light whatsoever because what you do is you have this rotating system and it keeps on rotating on power the whole time. Okay, and so you can grow spinach and greens and all that in a very, very small space, and it just continues to roll. And the sunlight is basically contained inside of it. So you don't have to, you can keep daylight on all day long. You can keep full spectrum bulbs in there. They take care of all the work for you. So you just basically have this, I'm sure it's not a radically inexpensive system, but technology and YouTube, things technically are typically will get better and better and better in terms of price. I'm sure somebody's going to figure out how to do this with a trash can and and a 2x4 or something. But it does really work well. But obviously, this is not for a novice gardener. I think you'd have to be pretty technical. So if there's any engineers in here, you might want to try and pull this off and let us know how it works. Pretty cool setup, though. I thought I'd at least go through that. Okay, pest control. A couple of the things that we've learned, and again, we are not masters of this. We have not defeated the bugs yet, but the number one thing we learned, growing season. Okay, the things that grow well down here, we found collards and cabbages and stuff like that. That's what gets decimated by the bugs. And so we, I was even told so much, that basically, if you're not going to use pesticides, then you're not going to grow collards. You know, and I guess, you know, during the summer that is correct, but we had a radically different experience in the fall garden than we did in the summer garden. In the summer, you know, we planted all kinds of, man, we were so excited that we were going to grow collards that first year. I mean, we put all kinds of, I mean, I probably planted 50, 60 plants. You know, that's what I'm talking about with the sweat and the bugs flying up your nose and everything else. I mean, we planted all kinds of them out there. And then literally in the matter of one weekend, we went away somewhere. I don't remember where we went. We went out of town for a weekend and we came back and they were all just completely decimated. Every single leaf. We look on the back of them and there were worms everywhere. They were having a feast. And so, you know, we learned our lesson there. We decided we weren't going to grow collards during the summer garden. We replanted again in the fall. Radically different experience. Like I said, I mean, we had mustard green leaves literally this big. I mean, they were huge. I mean, we were wearing them as hats. You know, we were slapping each other with them. Like, I mean, it was awesome. Radically different experience. So, you know, you go grow those things when the bugs aren't around, and you'll see it's much better. Has anybody had success growing collards during the summer without pesticides? No?
Might try some chickens.
Try some chicken. I've heard that works, yeah. Yep. We can't have chickens in our neighborhood. But if you can have chickens, that's a good idea. Another thing, companion plants. Who in here has looked into companion planting, at least to a somewhat level for our area? Okay. If anybody is interested, email me. You can email me at drbucknell@gmail.com. I have a companion plant list, basically guide, where I got serious about this. I opened up Photoshop and I put each individual plant and what companion plants work together. And it looked, when I was done, I had everything on a page, but it looked like a ball of yarn. I mean, it was just lines going everywhere. But then I took that and I charted it out with what to grow in what areas. So now I have a one-page piece of paper that tells me when to grow what in what season that we've done over the last couple of seasons, and it tells you grow this with this with this with this with this with this, and it's flowers, herbs, vegetables, everything all together in groups. So it makes it real easy. You can take that and you can kind of duplicate it, and you'll find that you can grow your herbs. Certain flowers that grow real well together. And that way the only issue is you have to grow certain things that you may not know that you have a use for. But just grow them together because everything is in there for a purpose. In that it has. It adds nitrogen back to the soil, where this thing robs nitrogen from the soil. Or, I'm sure most of you have heard of like the Three Sisters, where the Indians used to grow corn and green beans and squash together. Yeah, so those three things, they always grew together because they supply and they help each other. So companion planting works. Send me an email and I'll send you that chart. The next thing that we learned as far as pest control, beneficial bugs. We don't think about bugs. We think, oh my gosh, there's a wasp nest, let's go and spray it down with some poison, okay? We learned differently. We found that wasps actually eat cabbage worms. So you, in a sense, as long as you're not in danger and you know that they're there and you don't have kids that are going to go out and try to, play with the wasp nest, you want to keep them there because they will actually fly into your garden, and you'll find if you have a garden, they're going to build a nest near you because guess what they eat? Other bugs. They'll actually feed on them. Ladybugs also, I never knew how valuable ladybugs were until we had a garden. Ladybugs eat aphids and they eat them ferociously. A lot of beetles eat other bugs, a lot of other pest bugs. Ladybugs, they say, can eat something like 1,000 aphids in one day. I mean, they devour them. And so, if you're growing green beans and you've got aphids all over, guess what you're going to see in your backyard pretty soon? You're probably going to find some ladybugs out there. So what do you want to do? You want to build a nice little hotel for them. Okay? So if you look around, you can find some neat designs that will actually house different bugs. And different bugs like different environments, but a lot of these beneficial bugs, they'll grow together. They'll actually live together. So you create, ones for the carpenter bees, and your ladybugs will live inside of closed boxes like that. You'll typically have a closed box that's got leaves and pine cones and stuff like that inside of it. And then you'll have another one that's just got sticks in there, and your different bugs will grow in different environments. So look up bug hotels and you'll get some pretty cool ideas, and you can hang these up in different areas of the garden. They're cheap, they're super easy to build. I built mine in like 2 hours, and it kind of looks nice in your garden. People ask, oh, what's that? That's my bug hotel. It's the Marriott. So, okay, this one is really cool. Who in here has heard of not Dr. Bronner's, neem oil used for the garden? Okay, who in here has seen how expensive it is? It's pretty expensive, right? So they say that you want to take the neem oil and you want to spray your plants with it. Well, number one, it's an oil, so it's not the easiest stuff to spray, first of all. Number two, it's really expensive. Although we did find a decent source for it. If you go to mountainroseherbs.com, you can get big, 16, 32 ounce bottles of it for reasonably priced. $30 or something like that. But here's the trick. Somebody on YouTube, of course, figured this out. The issue is you want to emulsify the oil, right? So that you can get a better disbursement of it. So he found that Dr. Bronner's, specifically the Salsud soap, you don't want to use their lavender soap or eucalyptus or one of these other ones. The thing about the Salsud specifically is it is a high suds, non-perfumed, just basic soap. So it takes very small amount of the soap to create a lot of suds, and that emulsifies the oil. So you take a full-size, one of those full-size bottles from Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, one of the big utility-size squirt bottles. Take 1 tablespoon of neem oil, 1 tablespoon of the Salsud soap, fill it halfway with water, and then shake it all up. Shake it up really good. It's going to create tons of suds, and it's going to emulsify all the oils caught up into the soap solution. Then wait for it to settle and go back and fill it up the rest of the way. Okay? Now, when you go out and you spray your plants, what are you spraying mostly? Water. But it only takes, if you've taken that oil before and you've ever gotten in on your hand, one time I got a funny story on this one. One time, the bugs that I was talking about, when you get outside and they're literally flying in your face and you start like being profane to the bugs because you're so ticked that they won't get away from your face. They're, going up your nose and everything else. You just find yourself getting madder and madder. I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I went in and I took some of the neem oil and I rubbed it on my hands and I like, take that. Put it all over my head. Big mistake. That stuff reeks. No wonder the bugs don't like it. When it's on your head, on your hair, and on your face and everything, you'll find out real quickly that stuff makes you nauseated. Within about 10 minutes, you can't stand it anymore. So the bugs don't like the smell. They stay away from, and it worked. The bugs stayed away from my head, but I couldn't get away from my head either. So this is a great solution. We used this last year. We sprayed it on our trees and everything else. It doesn't leave a film because it's a very small amount of soap. It does keep the bugs away when you do need it. Am I that confident that I would go and put another 40 collard plants in the ground in the middle of summer? No. I'm still not going to do that. But this does work on fruit trees. If you get the white flies on your fruit trees, you can go out and spray them a few times. They're gone. By the next day, you'll see they're not on the plants anymore. It keeps in a low concentration, so the soap and the oil doesn't really affect the leaves. It doesn't affect the plant and make the leaves brown or spot or anything like that. So this is just a great, great idea. This is probably the most promising pest control for organic gardeners I've seen. The next thing is thuricide and nematodes. The thuricide is a organism. It's I don't know if it's a bacteria or what, but it is a living organism. But some people say, yeah, you really shouldn't use that if you're true organic gardening. You really shouldn't use a fungicide. But after I looked into it more and more, I wasn't really convinced that it was a problem, because it is a biological agent, so it's still going to have a shelf life on the plant. You spray it on there, after the next rain, you have to go in there and you have to spray it again, because it will come off of the plants. It will wash away pretty easy. But it's not dangerous by any means to humans. Neither are the nematodes. But nematodes, you can actually buy those online as well, and you can buy them and put those into your soil or spray them over your garden, and they'll get down into the soil. But realistically, if you're cultivating your soil properly and you're getting leaf mold into the soil every year and mixing it in and keeping it moving and everything else, and you're not full of clay, you should get nematodes to move in naturally. They should establish themselves over time. That's really what you want, is year after year building up your soil, because it creates the environment. It's not the health of the plants going into the ground that matters, it's the content of the soil that matters most, right? So think about that and how that applies to our health too, right? We talk about that all the time. It's not about how necessarily just how your nervous system and how your body is functioning. We got to look at your environment, because you are only going to be as healthy as your environment is. Okay. All right. Next thing, weed control. A couple points here. Number one, for small spaces, really honestly, nothing beats hand weeding. I mean, just wait until the weeds get big enough to pull, and then just yank them out. But obviously, if you get into a large territory, a large area, that doesn't work anymore. We got real sick of, our garden is probably only about half the size of this suite. I mean, it's probably only about 700 square feet or something like that, if even that. But that's a big area when you're having to go out once a month and weed the whole thing. That's a lot of weeds to pick. So I got sick of being on my knees for that. Cloth row covers can be a very pricey pain. We learned that too. We bought the big old rolls, where you have to spend the cost to get all those rolls of the garden fabric is what they call it. Don't bother. The weeds grow straight through it. We had it down in our rows, and the weeds they came straight through. You have to have the thick canvas, woven polyester or polypropylene weave stuff that they make heavy-duty canvas tarps out of. If you go to the garden centers like A Bloom over here, you'll see that's what they have on the ground. They have the heavy-duty stuff. You can't go less than that, or you'll have weeds coming up everywhere. So then, the hard thing is going back at the end of the season, trying to get through the weeds and everything else to find all of your metal pins, to pull all those out of the ground. And you're having to dig, literally dirt's going over. I mean, it's not worth it. Large gardens increase yield by working through numbers. You don't have to have the individual plant working as well. You don't have to have the individual plant health. Each one doesn't have to produce, in other words, because you make it up in numbers. Okay, so you might have one area that does really well, but other areas, they may get trampled by dogs, as somebody else told me today. He said he put in about 100 corn plants, and the first day, 30 of them got trampled by the dogs. So the next one, know your weeds, because like bugs, they can be beneficial and even edible. We didn't find this out until later, but who in here has seen this growing on the side of the road? Red clover. Okay, or crimson clover is what it's called here. Not only did you know you guys can actually eat the crimson clover off the end, you can make tea out of it as well. It's edible. So if you ever run out of food, just go down the road, and dine away. They don't taste too bad. I mean, they're kind of dry, but we've literally gone out and picked them and eaten them, and they're perfectly fine. On that note, did you guys know you can also eat kudzu? People are always blown away when they hear that. That stuff grows everywhere. Go and find, here's a couple of ideas.
It will not die.
It won't die, yeah. I mean, you know why. The root systems grow up to 30 feet deep.
Oh my goodness.
That's insane, 30 feet. Okay? So take the new shoots, the new shoots that are spinning off trying to find, the next lamppost to connect to, okay? Cut off about the end about that long, okay? And just go around and collect those shoots. and you can cook them just like asparagus. They taste almost just like asparagus. They're good, and they don't make your pee stink. Okay. The next thing, take the leaves, the new fresh leaves. Don't get the old ones that have been there like at the end of the summer. You know, you go out there and they're tough. They're like sandpaper. Don't bother with those ones. You can't make those ones good. But if you take the new fresh leaves that are that bright green, pick away at those things. Just get as many as you can. Then bring them home, wash them. That's the tedious part, is washing the individual leaves. But after you wash them, lay them on a cookie sheet or a baking sheet. You know, it doesn't. You know, you don't want to use a stone because you're going to use oil. So just regular metal cookie sheets. Lay them all out. Brush them with olive oil, and then dust them with sea salt. Put them in the oven at 350 for 10 minutes. And they'll all dry up and curl up, and they're delicious. They taste just like kale chips. My kids eat them like crazy.
Do they really taste like that?
Wow.
They're great.
I have one that's grown up through my deck, and it literally in the summer, every 3 days I go out and I pull it. And it just pulls through the cracks, but I can't get to the roots because or it would be dead. So
You
I have
can anyways.
It's great.
You
Great
need a
snack
goat.
for the summer.
That's what they're doing in cities around the country. They're finding that goats are the best way to manage it because the goats love eating kudzu,
Wow.
so they just let them go and they just devour it. So then you got a bunch of fat goats to deal with. Okay, so know your weeds. Going through and pick them. You know, obviously the low growing weeds you don't have to worry about. You know, because they're low to the ground. And here's the thing we have to understand. Just like our bodies, the organisms are supposed to be there, right? Remember, we were all trained that bacteria and bugs and germs were bad for you. But now what do we know? That they're actually supposed to be there. And when you take antibiotics, you wipe everything out, and then you've got nothing left, and you get sick as a result. So just like that, I really think that we're going to find in the future that the lawns work the same way. You know, when you just let a lawn go and you don't do anything with it, it's hard to control, right? Because everything wants to grow. If you leave it alone, it balances itself out, and certain things grow in certain areas. Why do you think that is? You know, because certain areas have different nutrient deficiencies and nutrient overloads. Well, certain things are going to grow well in those environments. Same thing as taking a collard plant, put it in one space it does well, put it in another space it doesn't do well. So if something's growing well there, typically like if you put green beans in the ground, they donate nitrogen to the soil. Well, weeds do the same thing. So if you're deficient in something, they're probably working to replace and rebalance out that soil. So if it's a low-growing weed that's not just invasive, taking over everything like kudzu and killing all your other plants and stealing all the nutrients, I say leave it there. You know, especially clover. All of your clover, they're all fine. I mean, most of them grow very low, so they're not going to interrupt the other things, but they grow and donate nitrogen to the soil very, very actively. So they're good for your garden. So know your weeds. We've got a bunch of the crimson clover growing in our backyard now. It's pretty. It donates nitrogen. You can eat the flowers. You can make tea from it. You know, it's better than picking it off the side of the road, because if you pick it off the side of the road, you have no idea what chemicals are sprayed out there. In my backyard, I know what's there. So if I want to make tea with it, I can do it right there. Mulch old leaves, which over time become leaf mold. This is probably the best thing that we learned last year. You take all of your leaves, run them through a chipper, okay, and create a mulch out of them. And then keep that mulch packed around all of your plants. If you keep a thick layer around the plants, it holds in the moisture. It protects the soil and insulates it so it doesn't get too hot and it doesn't get too cold, okay? But the biggest thing is it creates a layer where very few weeds will actually kick through. And then as the weeds do kick through, you pull out the weeds that are there and you stack more leaves on top of it and protect it more. It cuts down on your weeding a whole lot more, and the best part is the leaves will mold on the underside, and then they start to dissipate into the soil. At the end of the growing season, you just mix all of that in, and you turn the whole garden over, and you're making the soil that much better for the next season. Okay, so this is probably the most effective thing, which seems like the most obvious thing, right? I mean, everybody knows you mulch your garden, you know, that's just, but this is one that you're not having to go and buy colored, red colored bark mulch that you have to like scrape away and dig underneath and then push it all back. You never have to touch this stuff again. You just put it in and then let it go after that. I've even looked into, so far it hasn't had any issue at all. So if you've got any trees in your backyard, collect your leaves, don't throw them out. Everybody goes and they take their leaves and they bag them up and they put them on the street. I'm the guy that comes and grabs your bags and puts them in my backyard. So we've got behind our fence, at the beginning of the end of the growing season last year, we had about 20 or 30 bags that have been back there for a year. Here's the trick. For leaf mold, you take the big plastic bags, the big black bags, put all your leaves into them, seal them up, stick them behind a fence. Don't touch them for a full year. Okay? All of the moisture inside the bag, it actually increases the degeneration and the bacteria count and everything else in there. It degenerates it a lot faster than if it were just laying on the ground in the sun. So when you go back a year later and you open up the bag, it's going to be varying inside, but you're going to find some of it has all the white spidery mold all over throughout it. That stuff is perfect grow medium. You can't get better nutrients for your soil. So you take all that now and you use that to cover all the rest of your plants. Cool? Okay, the top 10 things everyone should grow here. Okay, I thought if you guys have not gardened, if there's anybody in here that has not grown anything yet or has had trouble starting a garden, it might be because you're growing the wrong things. Okay, you imagine this, if everybody in a particular region grew the right things that grew in that region, in their backyards, and everybody all around the country did that, imagine the amount of food that we could grow in the United States. I mean, it would be so cheap. Like, you wouldn't be able to get rid of all the food that you had because everybody would have enough food. We'd be able to transport stuff all over the place. And it's just a matter of putting the right stuff in that doesn't take time. It's easy to take care of. So here's the top 10. Number 10, the least of the top 10, kiwi fruit. Who would ever think that we could grow kiwi fruit in Alabama, right? But Auburn University headed up a project and they've actually created some varieties that grow very well in the Deep South, the golden and the smooth skin kiwis. We actually have 2 of these that we've planted we planted one in a box, and then we planted another one next to the box, and then we have a male off to the side. You have to have male and female growing together or the females will never produce. So they aren't self-pollinating. But we planted them at the beginning of the spring last year, and they've gone from plants about this big to already they're up the entire trellis, 10, 12 feet up in the air and growing over the top a couple feet in. I mean, they're huge. And the cool part is they get to be about 30 feet in length. Like, they will grow out 30 feet. So we have this trellis in our backyard that's, about the height of here, maybe a little bit lower, and it's probably about this long to that wall. And so they're growing in this box. We figure it's gonna, by the time it fully matures and develops, it's gonna cover half of our pergola. Okay? And so just like this, as long as you keep it trimmed back, when it comes time to pick, when they're in season, you look up and you got all these kiwi berries, kiwi fruit hanging from the pergola. You just walk out there and start picking away. Pretty cool, huh? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to go to the store to get your kiwi. Number 9, blueberries. Okay, who in here has blueberries? Who in here has kiwis? Nobody? Okay, you have to try that. So blueberries. How many have blueberries again? Okay, quite a few of us. All right, cool. Blueberries, obviously, they're native to this area. They're not native to this area, but they grow well here. I think they started up north, is what I understood. But they grow really well. They're easy to maintain. You don't have to do anything. Every year we've got a patient who calls us over to her house to come and pick blueberries because she can't keep up with them. And so we go over there and me and my wife fill up big buckets like this while the boys go and fill up their mouths. They're just walking around there. We're filling the buckets. They're just walking around, just as many as they can stuff in their faces. So Except for Oren, he just goes and he grabs them out of our buckets when we're not looking, because he doesn't want to have to pick them. He's 3, so he's still smart. Number 8 is strawberries. Like I said, strawberries are fairly easy to grow here. If you go over across the bay to Malbus, they have the strawberry festival every year, right? Loxley, yeah. So they have a big strawberry festival because they're easy to grow down here. Like I said, we just left them all on the ground and they're just taking over. And they will continue to spread out. So no, if you put them in the ground, wherever you put them, they're going to continue to expand. So you either have to contain them or you have to, control them, one of the two. But they will take care of themselves. Number 7, green beans. We found that rattlesnake and homestead are very, very easy to grow down here. Anybody else have any varieties that you particularly like?
The little French fillet beans, we've done well with those, Contender and Blue Lake, but we use the heirloom,
Okay.
organic seeds.
Contenders, we've used those too.
Well.
Those worked well. The rattlesnakes I found have been my favorite so far. A patient told me about those. And the thing I like about them, they're not common. You don't see them in the stores and everything, but you can order them online. They grow to about this long. They're huge. And they're easy to know when they're ready to pick because they've got purple spots on them. So they're green with purple spots. And they are fantastic to eat. The first year that we gardened, that's the only thing that really did well. We put up this trellis, and man, they just kept on going. I had to add on height a couple of times, and they literally, by the time we were done, they were like 12 feet up in the air, and they were curling back down, trying to find somewhere else to go. I mean, it was crazy. We got tons of green beans that first season. Last year we didn't do quite as well because we planted like 8 different varieties of green beans, just trying to see which ones grew the best. And we particularly found that the rattlesnake and the homestead, those were the ones that did the best for us. But each yard, I think, is going to find where that works for me. You may not be able to grow them. You may find a different variety works much better. So test your yard. Number 6, collards, kale, and mustards. I kind of lump those all in together. That leafy green variety, they grow great down here. If you grow those in the fall garden, though, don't try to plant them in the spring. That would be my suggestion, unless you're going to control the bugs. We even tried another time. We tried to grow them in the spring, the second year, and we covered all the rows. Like I created this, I bought the wire covers and I covered the whole thing with fabric and built this intricate irrigation system, drip irrigation system and everything. It was a waste. They just didn't grow well because they didn't have the sunlight. So it was like we kept the bugs out, but they didn't get any sun, so we still failed. So we just found the fall was the way to go. Number 5, satsumas. Particularly the Owari Satsuma. This is like the only area in the country that satsumas really grow well. What is a satsuma?
Yeah.
It's an orange. It's like a tangerine. They grow about this big, and they're absolutely fantastic. But this is the only place, really, in the entire United States that we can grow them successfully. And they grow like crazy.
Is it on a tree?
It's a
like
tree.
the oranges?
Yep, it's like an orange tree. It's they don't get too big, right? I don't think they get.
They're small and they have real loose skin.
Yeah.
Easy to peel, very sweet.
Oh.
Yeah, they're oh man, they're fantastic though. Find when is Satsuma season?
In the fall.
In the fall. So this fall, find a fruit stand, somewhere where you see Satsumas advertised, and go and buy some. And try them out, and you'll see you want a tree in your backyard. Number 4, kumquat, sour or sweet. I particularly love the sour. Like Danielle's grandma, she's got a tree. The Stephanie, and so every year they go out and pick a bunch, and I usually get. And man, we just demolish those things. We'll eat 8 or 10 of them, and they're like so sour that they make your lips all tingle and everything. Oh my God. I don't think there's, how you think I must be deficient in something that these have, because there's no way humanly possible that they are this good. I mean, they taste that good that every time I'm like, man, I am missing something in these because they are inhumanly good. So they're, again, really, really easy to grow. We put one in the ground last year. It did survive the frost. We put in a Persian lime that did not. That died twice. We killed one and then put another one in the ground and it died. But the kumquats survived through the freeze, so they're somewhat hardy. And ours produced the first year. They weren't good though. I think it takes a couple of years to really get them established to where they create juicy fruit. Ours, we'd pick them off and they'd look good on the outside, but they'd be completely dry on the inside. There was nothing in them. There was no moisture. The next one, muscadines. Everybody says that different. Muscadines, muscadines. But the black or the bronze, I particularly find the black ones are the best. Like they, have you guys all had grape bubble gum, like grape chewing gum? That's what they taste like. They taste like just like the grape chewing gum. I swear they use muscadine juice to make that gum flavoring because it's identical. We put one in last year again. It produced the first year. This year, our vines have gone absolutely berserk. I mean, they are just going everywhere. It's awesome. And you can already see the little tiny clusters, the little clusters this big of 15 or 20 grapes that are just teeny, teeny, tiny. But you can see them all growing all over the plant. So they're going to produce amazing this year. I can't wait. But those things, they're so good. You just have to spit out the seeds. You don't have to. You can crunch up the seeds, and they actually have a lot of antioxidants in them. But that's if you like chewing them up. But it always kind of drives me nuts when people say, "I don't like muscadines because I don't like the seeds." That's like saying, I mean, you're missing so much just because of the seed inside that you got to spit out. They are literally one of the best tasting things out there. Number 2, okra. They grow just ridiculously easy down here. I mean, we went out in our backyard, and this is the one thing from seed, no problems. I mean, we take the Clemson spineless seeds, drop them in the clay, it don't matter. You can put these things anywhere. And they just fly out of the ground. They will grow out of the ground faster than anything else in the yard. And they just keep, once they hit, if you've never grown okra, this is what they do. They come up and they start growing their first pod. When the first pod is big enough, you cut it off. It grows a little further, it starts growing another pod. You cut it off. It grows another pod. You cut it off. So if you have a row, you can literally go out there almost every day, if not every 2 days, and cut enough okra for your dinner. I mean, we were out there every 2 days for probably 4 weeks getting okra, just profusely. So, like, when you have that kind of success, what does it make you want to do? More. More. So, this year, forget all the stuff that didn't grow. We'll just put a bunch of okra in there and just, we'll supply okra to everybody. I mean, it's fun to grow stuff that you actually see grow. It's not so much fun when you sweat and eat bugs and still watch it die. Number 1, probably the easiest one that I now know that we just put in last year is figs, a fig tree. The Celeste and the brown turkey figs are the ones that everybody says grow the best down here. We put in a Celeste in our backyard. But did you know this, that when the original settlers came to Mobile, I found this out actually down at Fort Gaines. I think it was Fort Gaines, the one that's downtown.
Right.
Fort
Condi, okay. So at Fort Condi, they have underground, inside the thing, they have all the little boards that have notes about what happened back then and how this went. It's like a whole history timeline. And we were reading through it, and I thought it was so cool because it was talking about how all of the native, all the people who came over and were living in the fort, they were all starving because they were trying to grow all kinds of stuff and they couldn't get anything to grow. So they were all starving and they were literally dying. And the Indians came along and they said, you guys are growing the wrong stuff. Like, you need to grow figs. You need to grow this. They showed them how to plant fig trees. And so they planted fig trees all along, big plantations or whatever you want to call them, outside of the fort. Fig trees grew like crazy, and that's what they survived off of. because they were so easy to grow. So put one in your backyard and just watch it take off. I mean, but of course you got to like figs. But I seriously think you'll find once you eat stuff enough, you get to like it. And you just have to get used to that being in your diet. My wife used to not eat any vegetables at all. Now she'll eat just about anything, because when you learn it's nutritious, then you learn that food is not for pleasure. Food is for fuel.
And when you eat it from what you have grown, it's all the better.
Oh, it tastes so much better out of your backyard. There's no question. Okay, so on that note, any questions?
Did you think about when you're ordering seeds, who best to order seeds from, what companies are out there, and that kind of?
Yes, you will actually find if you research online, look up seed companies, who own seed companies, and you'll find that Monsanto and Cargill and all these big companies, they're swallowing up seed companies as quick as they possibly can. They're trying to completely control the seed populations, if you will, out there, and what you have access to. Because of course, if they control the seeds, they can decide at any time not to sell them, and then you have to buy their stuff. But Seed Savers Exchange is a great one. Another one that seems to be a little bit more pricey is the who are they? They're the big company that's
Burpees.
no, not Bonnie, not Burpees. It's another one of the.
It's Baker.
No, it's not
It's
Baker.
Botanical Interest, Seeds of Change.
Seeds of Change, that's it. That's what I was looking for, yes. Seeds of Change is one of the well-known organic heirloom companies, but I found that their seeds seem to be a little bit pricier. Like, what you'll look at, and something to pay attention to if you've never bought anything from seed before, is that if you look and compare packets, you're not always getting packet to packet. You may look at one and you get 40 seeds, you look at a different company and you get 200. They're the same price. But so we found that going through Seed Savers Exchange that we tend to get more for our money. There was another one that we, heirloom something. There was another one. If you email me, I could find out who it is. But I know Seed Savers Exchange, that's a good one. You just got to know what you're looking for, though. Because when you get on their website, it literally, they get so many seeds from so many different places that when you look on their website, there will be literally 40 different varieties of cucumber.
Yeah.
And you got to pick which one you want. So that's why I kind of listed on there the ones that you want to look for. We tried all the different okra, stick with Clemson spineless. Because the red ones, they grow really long and they're good, but if you miss the window, they're like leather eating them. I mean, you cannot chew through them. The white ones, they all curl over and they go bad before you can really pick them. The Clemson spineless, perfect every time.
Urban Farmer Seeds is one I've been buying some from.
Urban Farmer Seeds. Yep.
I just have a question. If you buy a conventional seed pack and raise it organically, what's the difference in buying organic seed packs and raising them in cereal?
Well, that's a good question, because that's kind of like let's say you're going to become a father. Would you rather be healthy and fit and full of good nutrition, or hugely obese, overweight, and full of chemical toxins? Which one do you think is going to have healthier offspring? That's kind of the way that I look at it. Is the parent plant, even we just don't know that much about it yet. So I'd rather know that the parent plants are healthy as well. And you also have to know that they're heirloom. That's kind of the biggest thing, because so many of these seeds are hybridized and everything else, to where they, a lot of them won't even produce seeds. Like they like the watermelons that don't produce seeds. There's something wrong with that. If it's not producing, then the plant itself is defective. So, that's a tough question. I don't think anybody really has a clear-cut answer to that right now. But you do have to be cautious of that if you're buying plants from Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff. Make sure that they are organic. Because if you buy seeds, if you buy plants from there, you know they're full of chemicals already. They've used Miracle Grow and everything else most likely. Anything else?
You mentioned fig trees.
Yep.
I've got a couple of them, and birds love figs.
Birds love figs.
But I've got a green fig, and they barely change color. And I find that birds kind of ignore those.
Really?
So if you want to look into that,
What kind of tree is it? Do you know?
it's one of my mother gave me. It's called a green fig.
A green fig. Okay. Okay.
So they
love
swell up when they ripen, just like a black fig does.
Okay.
But they just barely turn kind of an off green, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Has anybody had any luck with cucumbers?
Yes.
Can you plant cucumbers here? Because you were just making a list of things. 'Cause we tried
Don't
last
plant
year.
too many,
It
unless you
depends on
really,
your
really
soil.
like them.
That's
So
good.
it really kind of depends on your soil, but mine's
Yeah.
kind of sandy and it's really perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think
Soil
I've
that
ever
drains.
had a problem growing cucumbers.
We had a bunch grow last year. We did. We had a bunch grow last year in boxes. They all died. They all they grew up. The leaves got all white and wilty, and they all died. Not a single one.
We had good plants, but never set any fruit. They didn't die. Didn't do anything.
So sandy soil is what you
You want
found.
it to drain.
Well, it's sandy, but it has the leaf, we've been putting leaves in there.
Okay.
Mulch, so it's kind of dark, has plenty of mulch.
Your sandy soil holds the moisture good,
Yeah.
so you can just about plant anything in it.
Okay.
Not clay.
Down our way, we were down to Schillinger and it's storm and, even after that, you could go out and plow and, everything, okra, peas, butter beans, they all just grow real good, that kind of soil.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I should clarify that ours was not sand; it was clay.
Clay.
Ours is all the orange clay.
Well,
That's
apparently our dad had some
Yeah,
really good
place-
soil. I mean, we had
place
to garden every year,
Yeah.
and we did not like that.
In fact, that's kind of a funny thing about that because I don't remember what I was trying to put in. I was trying to put something in the backyard, and at one point I remember actually having to take what was I putting in? I was putting a pole or something in the backyard, and I actually had to go and get a power drill to drill down into the clay. It was like drilling through a brick. I had to use a power drill. I don't remember what I was putting in, but no wonder stuff doesn't grow back there, right? Okay, any other questions?
I had one. I planted fruit trees this year. I had zero experience with fruit trees at all. I did a nectarine, lemon, and 2 blueberries. And we got them from the bloom over here. They already had fruit on it when I brought it home. I've been told that I need to cut all of that fruit off this year so that the trees can concentrate on the roots. True.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing that you don't want to eat the fruit the first year. You want to let it. Yeah, I mean, if anything, just let it go. I don't know. I wasn't told you have to cut it off.
I was told any blooms or fruit. I was actually told that today. I was like, my grandson's going to be so disappointed because
I've heard that too, and
just
that's
to
hard,
look at
that's
it.
hard to do.
Said that
Yeah.
the tree needed to concentrate on its root system the first year and not on the fruit that's on the tree.
With the blueberries, we let ours go the first year, and they tripled in size, and now we have tons.
Really?
Three
What do you
three
do for
blueberries.
your blueberries? I was gonna, we just have had blueberries and we
Yeah.
don't get any blueberries.
We put-
everything.
Pine straw around the base. I know they like slightly acidic soil.
That's what I
And
did
that's all,
too.
no fertilizer or cottonseed.
Pine straw or pine bark.
Fertilizer.
If you talk to folks that grow them out in Grand Bay, they'll tell you pine straw and pine bark
And that's it.
around your buried trees, yep.
And ours don't get much sun. I don't know.
Well, see, it said the instructions said to plant them in the shade, so
In the shade.
part sun shade. So that's what I was surprised at that.
And you got a lot of blueberries.
Mine have grown
Yeah.
a foot. The bushes grew a foot a week after I put them in the ground.
Ours are probably about
So I'm so excited.
The ground has a lot to do with it if it's good.
Yeah, ours have not done that. I thought ours were dead.
Really.
I mean, they were this big last year when I planted them. They're still about that big, but they're producing blueberries.
When I planted mine, put them in, the kids, I thought killed one, and I killed the other with the lawnmower. And it just, they look like sticks, and it's like they died. And then the next year, they had new shoots growing up, where the old stuff was still there, but when it finally came back, oh my goodness, it is huge now. It's like it had to die and start over.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
That's it. I mean, they're just, they grow incredibly well down here. So it's if you got the space, it's a no-brainer. Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, being that I'm not an expert, and I hope none of you guys were absolute experts too, and were bored out of your minds. Hopefully, we learned something tonight.
Yeah.
And of course, being that there's so many people in this office that do garden, if there's, if you ever have a question about anything, don't hesitate to ask one of us, because I guarantee you we have somebody that knows, and we probably know who to ask. So we luckily, being in the natural health sector, we do have good resources in that area. So ask away, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered. All right, good stuff. Have a good night.